consequences.
Attention customers and staff, our alarm has just gone out. Could you please evacuate the building in an orderly manner? Please, all staff members and staff and customers, do not stay next to the building. Please keep far away from the building. Please, staff members, go to the assembly point. This is an emergency. All staff members and customers, please evacuate the building immediately.
Protecting a business, its employees and customers from fire is a precaution which not only has the potential to save lives, but it can also safeguard against huge financial losses as well.
The high risks associated with fire, therefore, make it essential to have an evacuation plan in place, and it is equally important to execute it. If your evacuation plan is not carried out, then you will never know if there are any errors or whether further measures need to be implemented.
What is important with and necessary with evacuation plans is to ensure that members of staff know about it. It is one thing for an organization to have the most elaborate and the best constructed plan and have it in the office as a showpiece. It is important that when you put all of the elements of a safety plan together, whether you're focusing on fire, whether you're focusing on violence within the workplace, whether you're focusing on earthquakes or whatever the case may be, that the staff know exactly what steps they have to take in the event that something happens. And I am happy to say that this is also one of the areas where the fire service is getting a tremendous amount of requests for persons not only to provide training for their staff, but also give assistance in developing well laid out evacuation plans for their staff.
In order to maintain the health and safety of employees in the workplace, employers must ensure persons have adequate access to a fire escape or exit.
Almost every business in Barbados will have some means of escape or exit from the building. You cannot operate as a business without having some means of exit in your business. Sometimes the challenge that people find is whether they believe people have enough exits or something of that nature. What I want to say is that exits are a function of the size of the business, that is in terms of its square footage, and also the occupancy, that is what you're doing inside of the business, and also the number of occupants or persons who might be using that particular business. So if you have an establishment that has a large number of persons, you want to ensure that the exits that they have to leave the building are commensurate with that volume of persons.
Business places are mandated by law in the form of the Safety and Health at Work Act, which was passed in 2013 to ensure that they follow these regulations.
The Act in general applies to almost all workplaces, with a few exceptions. Members of the police force and the Barbados Defence Force are exempted, as well as persons employed in domestic service in private households. There's also exemptions of master and crew on board ships. So that's the general application of the Act. When it comes to the fire safety provisions apply to all workplaces that the Act applies to. So whether it's a small operation or a large operation, all workplaces are required to have adequate fire safety provisions in place.
Under the Safety and Health at Work Act, it is an offense not to have adequate fire safety provisions in the workplace.
Any breach of the Safety and Health at Work Act is an offense of the Act, and that includes breaches of fire safety provisions. If there is a breach, what we would normally do at the Labor Department is during our walkthrough inspections, we would give verbal instruction, and sometimes we will give written instruction and give the employer an opportunity to correct the breach. If they fail to correct the breach, then we have the authority to issue improvement and prohibition notices, and then of course the Act does give the Chief Labor Officer the jurisdiction to seek prosecution.
A business can fail an inspection because the requirements for the condition of the means of egress is not satisfied. That is, the person may have impediments in the way of egress. The persons may not have enough fire protection. That is the amount of extinguishers or the fire suppression systems that you would expect within the business. They don't have it. They may not have warning devices. That is, they may not have an alarm system. They may not have smoke alarms. They may have a large number of combustible materials in an area that presents a significant hazard. And when the inspection is done, these things might, the business owner might not be able to move these things or to have these things done immediately. And therefore, a certificate would not be issued on that first visit based on the conditions that were just described. What would happen is that there would be an agreement between the inspector and the business owner to have these matters addressed within a given time period. And a reinspection would be done. And once that those items have been addressed, well, then the way is open that the certificate can be issued. It can remain in a failed position if you go back the next time those conditions still exist.
If an office building has been well equipped in case of fire and there are appropriate means of escape, then certification to this extent can be verified by the Barbados Fire Service.
Right. Most persons who request an inspection of their premises from the fire service will write a letter to the fire service, write a letter to the fire chief indicating that they require someone to come and do an audit of the business. And the chief fire also, once he receives that information, he will send an officer to the area to ensure that that is done. It comes by hard mail sometimes, hard copy mail. Sometimes people email the chief fire officer and he's very amenable to those things. Sometimes people take up the telephone and make a call. And all of these mediums are responded to.
At times, the most common cause of fire is simply a lack of maintenance.
It is recommended that every 3 years, your electrical system be re-evaluated by a professional. And a lot of the times, we don't do that. And therefore, you can find that a business can be going on for 15, 20 years, and there has never really been an evaluation of the electrical system, and sometimes that can go down. There are times too when you have industries like woodwork industries and so on, and sometimes the machines that they use can become contaminated by the dust and so on that go into the machines, and they can also cause problems. So those are some of the things that you would normally find causing issues within businesses.
There are certain steps that business places can take to prevent fires from occurring in the first place.
You can have the best fire protection system, you can have the best fire detection system, you can have all the signs that you need. And the persons who operate in the business are not educated, they're not trained, then you can still have issues. Because fire safety really is about people, not only saving people's life, but it's the persons that actually need to make the interventions and carry out the best practices to ensure that safety is optimum in every business.
Within the Massey Group, an effective fire safety committee has been in operation for 8 years.
In many instances, employers tend to focus on the safety and health at work legislation as being a responsibility solely for the employees, but the legislation does actually in fact extend to the operations of the business and the possible impact on members of the public. So therefore we do have a significant responsibility to members of the public to make sure that our operations are safe, and that will also extend to not only our fire safety and prevention equipment, but evacuation plans and the execution of these plans as well. In some of the buildings and operations that we have existing here, we may be tenants. In other operations and in other premises, we may actually be the owners of the premises. The legislation is very clear that in terms of multi-tenanted operations, that the responsibility is really on the landlord to provide the fire warning system. Now in some of our business operations rather, where we are tenants and landlords have not prevented the fire warning systems, we have taken the proactive steps to actually implement and install these systems on our own. And in the multi-tenanted operations where those actual warning systems are installed, we try to have coordinated drill evacuations with all of the tenants. Because if we just focus on our operations and we are comfortable that we can execute an evacuation, but we're in a multi-tenanted operation, we really and truly aren't being our brother's keeper and seeking to help those others who may not have plans in place, or if we have a particular issue at another operation within the premise, if we don't all work in a coordinated effort, there still can be significant exposure to employees and patrons of the particular building or mall type operations.
If you are a business owner or even a householder who is desirous of obtaining a fire extinguisher, then you should know that it is not at all difficult to attain.
In the business community, this is normally done by either inviting the fire service, or sometimes there are other service providers who will come in and do an analysis, a hazard analysis of your business. And then based on their findings, they will recommend to you the types of extinguishers that should be sited in a particular area to cover a particular hazard. In the home setting, it is pretty much the same thing. You have to know what are the greatest challenges or hazards that you have in your home, and the extinguisher that you employ should be commensurate with that type of risk. What I say to homeowners, however, is that it is easier to purchase an ABC type extinguisher to cover the risk in your home, because that one extinguisher will be able to cover at least 60% of the hazard classes that there are. So if you buy that one extinguisher, it can cover Class A risk, it can cover Class B risk, it can cover Class C risk, and for homeowners that would be my choice of extinguisher.
With regard to the creation of internal safety and health committees in workplaces, the track record has been quite a good one.
We are very pleased with the response of workplaces in seeking to implement joint health and safety committees. You might remember that the Health and Safety Committee is a mechanism through which the employer and the workers work together to improve any safety and health issue, including fire safety. And what we've recognized since the Act has been proclaimed is that there's been a high demand, high interest in having training done for health and safety committees and understanding the role of safety committees.
I am happy to say that certainly within the last couple of years, I would say 3 or 4 years, that the number of incidents of fire within the business places have really gone down. As a matter of fact, to date, we only have 14 reports of calls to structural fires. And in a lot of cases, they're not major incidences involving blazes, large blazes, and so on. Most of the times, you have difficulties with the electrical system. It may be an air conditioning unit that might be giving trouble. It may be a ballast from one of the lights. These are the types of reports that you get in businesses right now. But I'm seeing that the business owners, persons in Barbados who operate businesses these days, are a lot more safety conscious. They do a lot more training with their personnel, and in terms of putting the systems in place that are required by the law, the alarm systems, the fire protection systems, and so on, these things are being done.
Fire safety is everyone's responsibility. No matter what type of business you conduct in your workplace, fire safety should always be a main concern.
Officer Gaston Fire Service is also responsible for the current individual response on the world. This morning I had an evacuation drill or an emergency. What type of emergency, anybody?
We welcome your feedback on our programs. You may email your comments to bgisfeedback@barbados.gov.bb. You may also view our website at www.gisbarbados.gov.bb or subscribe to our YouTube channel, the BGIS.